Prince's last Diddy recording played in trial.
It was supposed to be another day in court until a voice from beyond the grave shattered everything. The moment Prince's final recording echoed through the courtroom, the atmosphere turned electric. But it wasn't just the sound of the music legend's voice that silenced the room. It was who he named, what he saw, and the explosive secrets he'd locked away for nearly a decade. Within seconds, Diddy, the man who had looked untouchable, crumbled in front of everyone. What exactly did Prince say in that recording, and why did it leave one of music's most powerful men visibly shaking, shouting, and unraveling before the jury's eye? This wasn't just a bombshell, it was a ghost delivering testimony that could take down an empire. We know what's next. The moment Prince's voice filled the courtroom, everything changed. Diddy, once cool, composed, and untouchable, visibly cracked. His polished persona didn't just slip, it shattered. Witnesses stopped breathing, phones froze mid-text, even the judge leaned forward. What could possibly cause one of music's most powerful men to unravel in front of a packed courtroom? It wasn't a witness.
Cassie said he would get physical. That one male guy who did things with Diddy and Cassie said he witnessed him get physical. Don, so again, we talked about how the domestic charges aren't, what he's being, what he's on trial for. But boy, it's stacking up. And I feel that the jury is going to take that into consideration.
It wasn't a document, it was a ghost. Prince from beyond the grave had just become the most devastating witness the industry has ever seen. And what he revealed sent shockwaves through Hollywood and left Diddy spiraling in real time.
The first Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your security in.
Day 3 of the trial began like the others, at least on the surface. Journalists jostled for front row seats, celebrity observers slipped in quietly through private entrances, and Diddy arrived flanked by his high-powered legal team, exuding the same smug confidence he'd worn all week. Dressed in a flawless navy suit and flashing that famous smile, he looked like a man who still believed he was in control. But something felt different. The courtroom wasn't just tense, it was charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. Security had doubled overnight. 4 guards now stood directly behind Diddy's table, a precaution no one could explain until later. Behind the scenes, whispers were already circulating. Court insiders sensed something was coming, and the prosecution, they looked calm, focused, like they'd been waiting for this exact moment. The courtroom wasn't just tense, it was charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. Security had doubled overnight. 4 guards now stood directly behind Diddy's table, a precaution no one could explain until later. Behind the scenes, whispers were already circulating. Court insiders sensed something was coming, and the prosecution, they looked calm, focused, like they'd been waiting for this exact moment. The morning's proceedings started routinely enough. The prosecution methodically walked through witness testimony from earlier in the week, drawing connections, building momentum, but nothing that hinted at the storm brewing beneath the surface. Then, in the middle of a sentence, the lead prosecutor paused. Her expression shifted. Your Honor, she said, holding up a small black device. The prosecution is prepared to introduce newly authenticated audio evidence. Immediately, the defense jumped up, objecting, shouting foul over improper notice. A heated sidebar erupted, with Diddy's attorneys gesturing wildly, but the judge wasn't swayed. The evidence was disclosed during discovery, he ruled. Proceed.
Just trying to listen. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that I've heard and seen already. I'm really trying to connect the dots here and think like, damn, what if Prince was what if he caught wind of some, I'll just say allegedly, stuff that Diddy might have been doing? That seems to be like, I ain't talking about consensual things, I'm talking about illegal things or whatever. But I'm just like, would Diddy be that dumb to not think that Prince, this celebrity, has cameras in his house as well? So I'm just trying to think, because if Prince has cameras and he's recording stuff, to get some dirt on Diddy, I don't know. I feel like Diddy, with all his cameras that he allegedly had, Or no, they actually found cameras.
What happened next stopped the entire room cold. The prosecutor turned to the gallery and spoke clearly, deliberately. What you're about to hear is the final private recording made by Prince Rogers Nelson before his death. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Phones trembled in reporters' hand. Diddy's lead attorney clutched his client's arm, but it was already too late. The color had drained from Diddy's face. He stared ahead, unblinking, as tech specialists connected the device. No one moved, no one breathed. In that instant before the first word played, the balance of power in the courtroom flipped. The trap had been set, and Diddy, he was standing right in the middle of it. Then it began. Prince's voice, calm, low, almost conspiratorial, filled the room. "I'm making this recording because I don't know who to trust anymore," he said. It wasn't music, it wasn't performance, it was confession. The audio was crystal clear. You could hear him breathing, pausing, choosing every word with care. But nothing prepared the courtroom for what came next. He started naming names, dates, places, and at the center of it all, Diddy.
Became such a big deal back then is ever since my third album, I wasn't really taking large advances from the recording companies. I was recording the albums myself in my own studio. So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise. And they would always hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. And I say, well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. Of course, they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist. And that's kind of the situation we're in right today. They're not going to exist much longer. But it's not like we're against them or anything like that. The idea is that we find better ways of working with one another. It shouldn't be a situation where they own the album or the work. We're talking about intellectual copyright. If they're going to be indeed a delivery service, then that's fine. But even FedEx doesn't say that they own the thing that they
And every single detail matched the earlier witness testimonies the jury had already heard. One by one, the puzzle pieces began falling into place. Diddy wasn't just implicated, he was cornered by a man who couldn't be cross-examined, couldn't be silenced, and couldn't be intimidated. Prince wasn't just haunting the courtroom, he was dismantling Diddy's defense one word at a time. The recording rolled on, and with every passing second, Diddy unraveled further. His breathing became heavy, noticeable even from the gallery. His shoulders rose and fell rapidly. His eyes darted around the room like he was searching for exits. Then Prince dropped the address, a Beverly Hills property, already documented by prosecutors, tied to a March 9th, 2016 party. Diddy snapped. Without warning, he stood violently, as if yanked upward by invisible strings. 4 security guards moved instantly toward the defense table. His attorneys lunged to pull him back into his seat, but it was too late. "That's a lie," Diddy suddenly shouted, his voice echoing through the stunned courtroom. "He wasn't even there. That never happened." A courtroom reporter in the front row physically recoiled. The judge's gavel slammed down. "Order, Mr. Combs, control yourself or I will hold you in contempt." The room fell into stunned silence except for Prince's voice still playing through the speakers. In that moment, everything shifted. The prosecution's strategy was now clear. They had waited, calculated, baited this outburst, and it worked flawlessly. Diddy had just proven in front of the jury that Prince's words hit a nerve too deep to hide. His calm, controlled image was gone. What was left was panic, rage, guilt, and the sound of a dead man telling the truth no one wanted to hear.
Cassie was into the freak-offs herself and was like a willing participant and was into all the freaky stuff, and essentially that was the crux of what they were trying to do yesterday.
And do you think they proved that or not?
I mean, there's texts like that from 2009. I'm always ready to freak off. There was some other texts where she was referencing like hitting him up about the FOs, is what they were referring to him. To me, like, yes, this doesn't look good, but at the same time, I think the timeline is crucial here. And these are texts from 2009, man. That was when they were first getting in the relationship. She was young. Obviously, they were in the honeymoon stage, and she was stoked to like, oh my God, I'm with Diddy. I'm living this lavish lifestyle. Of course, she's going to be saying things that she knows will curry favor with him to keep it going.
After the chaos was reined in and Diddy was forced back into his seat, the prosecution let the recording continue. But by now, the courtroom wasn't just quiet, it was reverent. Every person from reporters to jurors to the judge himself leaned in. Because Prince wasn't done, not even close.
Cassie Ventura on the witness stand for a fourth day in the federal criminal trial against hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The defense continuing cross-examination this morning, confronting her with dozens of her own messages, many explicit, hoping to convince the jury she was an eager sexual partner who matched Combs's desires. "I'm always ready to freak off," one message said.
He described the parties again, but this time with clinical precision. Names of attendees, layouts of private rooms, timelines that lined up with previous testimonies. These aren't just parties, Prince said. They're calculated events. He detailed how young artists were separated from their teams, isolated, pressured. He didn't speak in riddles. He spoke in receipts, locations that matched prosecution evidence, descriptions that mirrored earlier testimonies. He even outlined the exact floor plan of a Beverly Hills property already introduced in court. Then came the second bombshell, a direct confrontation. Prince said he approached Diddy at a Grammy after-party in 2016 and demanded answers. Diddy laughed. "You might be Prince, but you're not untouchable," he reportedly told him. "I took that as a threat," Prince said flatly. And finally, the money. Specific amounts, $2 million here, $1.3 million there. Prince listed them like transactions he'd personally reviewed. And here's the kicker. They matched the financial records prosecutors had already introduced earlier in the trial. "I've seen the NDAs," he added. "I've seen the payments." What he laid out wasn't rumor. It wasn't tabloid fodder. It was detailed, documented, and terrifying. By the time the recording ended, the courtroom wasn't just stunned. It was transformed. Prince hadn't just spoken. He delivered testimony that no living witness could match: calm, detailed, unshakable.
The other things that the Diddy's team tried to do was show how they had breaks, and she was with Michael B. Jordan and was with Kid Cudi for a minute. But during that time period, she was still having freak-offs with Diddy, and I think that was them trying to show this wasn't a controlling thing. Here she was hooking up with other people. She just was into the freak-offs.
I kind of buy that, to be honest.
So
she is out of the freak-off scene. She is when she's with Kid Cudi or allegedly with Michael B. Jordan. She's kind of out of the freak-offs if she wants to be. So why do you keep going back? Yeah. I know it's kind of like a mental she still loves Diddy. Diddy was jealous about her.
Oh yeah, because that was another thing that the prosecutors were trying to do, is show that that they had a very jealous relationship. She would get jealous when he's with Kid Cudi. Also, Kim Porter, Cassie would be jealous of Kim Porter.
Right.
Trying to show that Cassie, you were in love with this guy. That's why you were jealous.
Right.
So this was a real relationship.
It was just interesting to see Chris Brown's.
I mean, he's always coming up somewhere, dude.
He is.
Chris Brown.
All right. Final story of the week. Wow. Justin Bieber is not a victim of Diddy. So this was one of those rumors or whatever that was flying around in the months leading up to the trial. And to be honest, there was quite a few rumors flying around, was there minors involved? It says, if no other celebrity was part of freak-offs, why are they in hiding? Are they in hiding, though?
I don't think they're in hiding. I just think other celebrities didn't want to insert themselves. No one wants to be tied to Diddy one way or the other.
Even if you're at a white party, just having a lot of fun, one of Diddy's white parties, you don't want to be linked in any way.
No, and that's why, all those people, there's a few people I think that have come forward and been I didn't see any of this freak-off stuff.
As Prince's final words echoed, "Oh, if anything happens to me, make sure this gets to the right people." The courtroom remained frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody whispered. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room. The prosecutor didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Prince had done what no living person could. He detonated the prosecution's strongest evidence with chilling clarity and complete immunity. Diddy's legal team scrambled. His lead attorney stood, voice trembling, and begged the judge for a 15-minute recess to consult with their client. Denied. The judge's expression was stone. "We will proceed." You could see it in their eyes. This wasn't just a setback, it was a full-blown crisis. Their star client, once composed and untouchable, had just exploded in front of the jury. And now, with Prince's damning testimony playing in full, the jury had a front row seat to a meltdown that screamed guilt. Meanwhile, the prosecution didn't even try to hide their satisfaction. The second chair cracked a faint smile. It wasn't arrogance, it was confirmation. The trap they spent months laying had worked perfectly. Legal analysts leaned toward each other in the gallery, whispering the same thing. This was the moment the defense lost the case. No matter what they did next, they couldn't rewind what the jury had just witnessed. Diddy hadn't just lost control, he'd handed the prosecution their headline. Diddy breaks down under ghost testimony from Prince.
They have their notebooks in their hand. They're coming in, they're very alert, and I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse, or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura, and also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, 2 of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life. Those are young women. They lost their mother, one of them, the twins. So no one can probably quite understand what it is that they're going through, but I think that's something that you think about on both sides, to look at Alex Fine, which is Cassie Ventura's husband, and think about him having to listen to all that's being said about the type of woman that Cassie Ventura was versus the person that's expecting, their third child together now. So whether it's Combs's family or Ventura's family that's there to support her, her brother and her husband, Alex Fine, I think it's difficult on both sides. Seen him taking notes from the beginning. I see him put his glasses on. He gets very close to the screen when they're reading some of those text messages. So he's paying attention.
Now, Ventura confirmed that she and Combs had conversations about a swingers lifestyle, but that the freak-offs, they were very different.
Yeah, so she talked about this idea where I guess Combs wanted her to watch him have sex with another woman. She said that happened 2 or 3 times, but that he mentioned it frequently.
Kim Porter came up today in testimony. What was the significance there?
The defense said early on that this case would be about infidelity, love, and jealousy. And this is where they brought that up today when they brought up Kim Porter's name. The defense asked Cassie Ventura, are you jealous or were you jealous of Kim Porter? And Ventura sort of contemplated, but did get to this moment where she said, knowing that Combs spent holidays with his family, which meant with Porter, did bother her. And she admitted that. They also pointed out that there was testimony where she talked about being insanely jealous overall as a girlfriend. So, yeah.
We're hearing the judge wants Cassie off the stand tomorrow. Will the prosecution and the defense get equal time?
Yeah, as long as there aren't any additional motions, I think that is the goal, to have her off the stand by tomorrow.
Why do you think that? What's the reasoning behind wanting her off the stand tomorrow?
In the very beginning, Rachel, they told us that she would likely be on that stand 2 to 3 days. So here we are.
But the most chilling part, this might not be the end, just the beginning, because Prince didn't just name Diddy. He hinted at more names, more dates, more recordings, and if that vault of his holds even half of what insiders now fear it does, the ripple effects won't stop at this courtroom. One court official was overheard saying, everyone's asking the same question, who else did Prince record? The industry, once smug in its silence, is now buzzing with anxiety. What else did he know? What secrets were too dangerous to speak but too important to bury? The prosecution knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't just prove a case, they changed the stakes entirely. This wasn't about one man anymore. It was about a system. And with Prince speaking posthumously, free of fear or consequence, the floodgates may have only just begun to open. As the court recessed for the day, the room emptied in stunned silence. But no one left feeling like this trial was just about Diddy anymore. Prince lit a match. And now the whole industry's watching to see what burns next.